So if you're a veteran watching this, or if you're somebody in the military and you don't know what a C&P exam is, you're going to find out pretty soon when you start doing the claims process. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to be exactly the funnest thing that you do. So today in this video, I'm going to be talking about my claims process stories, and there are actually several. I'm going to be giving tips along the way, but this video I hope resonates with you to understand how painful this process can be and also how smooth this process can be. So I've got a couple stories because I've gone to several C&P exams, and hopefully I don't need to go to any more ever again. So I served in the National Guard for 8 years, and I did one deployment, one rotation, and then one block of time where I actually served for the state of Pennsylvania for like a year on orders. So I had a lot of active duty time, and that gave me the ability to go to the VA after my first deployment. So I started going to the VA, and really what I understood was just VA health, because really they just kind of signed everybody else up in the Guard and said, you have access to the VA. We're going to show you how to register and enroll. And there you go. You just can go to the VA. And so when I was actually getting out of the military, I started the process of this claims thing. This claims thing being as though somebody at the VA actually brought it up to me and said, do you want to ever go through and make a claim? You have some things from your deployment on here, some disabilities, which by their standards, like I didn't know what that meant yet. And I said, sure, like let's go through the claims process. And no one really explained it, but they said, you'll go talk to a VSO. So let me tell you the story about the first time I went to a C&P exam after this VSO and what had happened. So I talked to this VSO and I walk in there and I'm absolutely clueless. And he said, so what do you want to claim? And just sat there and stared at me. And I said, oh man, I don't know. I mean, I've told this story before, but I just went through a couple things that I wanted to claim. And he said, okay. And he wrote them down on a piece of paper, and that was it. He literally said, all right, sounds good. And we'll stay in contact. And that was it. He gave me his card. I, to this day, have never heard from that guy again. He gave me his card. I had called several times. I never heard from him, but I just was trusting the VA's process. I've gone to VA Health, and I did not know anything else different. So this first C&P exam was pretty interesting. What this VSO had done was sign me up for a C&P exam. He had the legal authority to do so because I gave it to him, because I said, yeah, sure, I'm going to sign up for a claim. And he did not tell me that I could have submitted evidence in any capacity. So this first C&P exam, I went in with submitting nothing, which is damn near the worst thing you can do, because then all you have is yourself, this doctor, who is a claims person, who is somebody that doesn't even work for the VA. They're a contractor. And that's all that I had to go with me. So yeah, this didn't really go my way, you could say. So I go into the C&P exam, and this person looks at me, and I'd claimed lower back pain and migraines. I think that was it. And I think I said there was scars on my back because I had a bunch of acne from my deployment, like a hellacious amount. But I didn't really have scars that were that visible. But he just said, well, do you have anything else? I said, oh, I mean, I've had some acne like on my back. Like, is that a problem? And he said, sure. So he just wrote down scars as if I knew that was something to look for. And I had done no research on any of this. Like, none of these things I did research on. So I go in there, and this C&P examiner was a lady, and she looked at the chart of information, which was probably nothing. And then she looked at me and she said, where's your paperwork? Do you have it on you? Did you bring a hard copy? And I looked back at her and I said, well, I've gone to the VA. Isn't this something you can look up? I had no idea that you had to submit evidence. I thought VA healthcare just talked to VA claims. So as you can tell by her tonality towards me, I knew something was wrong. That's all I knew. I knew that I was missing something. Whatever that was, come to find out, it was going to take me a while to figure out in general. So I'd gone through this exam, and she said, okay, I guess we'll just check your back. I guess we'll do this. And I had gone over to bend down, and I could bend down a little bit. And then she asked me some questions about the migraines, and she basically just scoffed at me and said, well, there's not much I can do with this. I can't really write the rest of this because you don't have any evidence. So I guess your back is, like it looks like it hurts, and that's it. And she didn't really say that's it as in like, that's all I can do. It was sort of like, that's it with the appointment. So my appointment was done in probably 10 minutes. And I left there being just like royally confused. I didn't go to a VA. Somebody didn't schedule this appointment with me. They just said, here's your appointment time. So I went to a random building, and I did not understand what the hell was going on. So I got back a rating. Shockingly enough, I did get a 10% rating for my back and denied the migraines and denied the scars. And it really irked me because I said, well, my back hurts, and it's hurt off and on since the military, and it got progressively worse. Mind you, this was 5 years ago. My migraines were actually at their peak at that point with no medication, but a track record of having them since like the day I got back from deployment. So I was really kind of irked about this because I said, well, I don't understand what I missed. Like, Why could they not just look any of this up? And unfortunately, this person from LHI did not explain the process to me either. And so I just gave up. Yes, you heard it here. The VA won. The VA fucking beat me because I just didn't go again. I thought, well, I guess I just didn't have enough stuff with the doctor. So like they didn't send anything over. So I just thought, well, my rating is just going to be this 10% rating. And I guess that's all I've earned. So I didn't really understand the migraine part, but I kind of just put it off to the side, which means I didn't respond to the appeals process. So that was my second mistake. So if you've gathered anything from this first exam, bring your evidence with personal statements, with evidence from the VA, which I've talked about in other videos, which I can link anywhere. Just go to my page on YouTube. Bring your evidence. And the second thing is respond to the appeals process. Look at your letter. So I got a VA letter, which I didn't care about because I just saw the rating on there and I didn't read the rest. I literally threw it away. I didn't know I could appeal. Ugh, I know, it's bad. I'm getting roasted in the comments, I'm sure, right now because people are like, Ethan, you teach the right things to do. How the hell did you not know the right things? We've all been there, all right? If you're watching my channel, you might be there right now, and please, for the love of God, watch the rest of my videos and save yourself the headache. So we're back in the driver's seat now. We're going through the C&P exam process again because about a year and a half later, one of my friends started asking me about this process, and they said, well, yeah, man, like I was able to get my compensation. You were on deployment with me. Like, did you get some ratings? And I said, well, I mean, I just got one rating. And he's like, just wait, one thing rated? He's like, how about other problems? Have you even reported them? Like, well, yeah, I mean, I've been going to the doctor. What do you mean? Like, what can I claim? I didn't know I could claim anything because I didn't know there was ways to link stuff from your service when it was happening. I just linked my back and the migraines because those are the only things I thought of, but it wasn't even that I thought of that. My back was a physical injury on the deployment documented. It was undeniable, and I still didn't even have the paperwork, but I had the story. I said, I hurt my back training, like guarantee. And they just believed what I was saying and then checked my range of motion, right? But I went back and I said, okay, what do you mean you can claim more? And he said, well, did you claim hearing problems and tinnitus? You've told me you have those. What happened with your migraine stuff? That was denied. And he's walking me through this and he's like, you need a better VSO. And I said, that VSO never contacted me. So he gave me the contact of another one locally to me. And I was like, thank God. So I didn't know how important this was. I started talking to a new VSO and this dude was awesome. He said, look, man, here's how this process works. And he explained it to me, mind you, in about 15-minute chat in person. So it wasn't enough for me to get the depths and the details, but he said, before every exam, you need to upload some stuff, but it's okay. You don't know how to, I'll do it for you. If you give me the legal authority, we'll look through some paperwork. I'm going to ask you for a couple pieces of paper. So he asked me for some stuff, no personal statements. He said, if you have a buddy letter, that's great, but really just go to the doctor. Like, go to the doctor and get some more stuff that you should have been getting. Go to the VA and go get the doctor's notes there. So I did that, and he helped me. So now we're going through this with the VSO, and unfortunately, as my process, I initiated the claim with him. I unfortunately lost him because he was retiring, and he told me, I'm retiring, I'm going to hand this over to somebody else. And that guy was also somebody that was unresponsive. And I mean fully unresponsive. I never heard back from that VSO. So I had two bad experiences with a VSO and one awesome one, and I couldn't complete the process with the awesome one. So my claim was in limbo and I didn't know what to do. At this point, I hired a company to help me, and all they were doing was consulting. And I wanted to claim stuff for anxiety because I knew that was a factor that was affecting me in my life. I was on the tail end of my time in the military. This is like the last 6 months I had left. And I was having issues with this. I was having issues at home. I had gone through a divorce previously. I kind of masked a lot of things and put it to the side. So I started doing a lot of research. I started talking to people and I started working with a company, and they guided me on actually putting a bow on the whole process. But they didn't give me the depths of everything, but they worked in specialized areas. And one of them was mental health. Great, so this company told me what to do, but guess what? They don't do it for you. So they said, well, did you initiate a claim? And I said, well, I think this guy did for me. And they're like, well, you need to jump in and finish it, but we can tell you what to do to finish it if you would like. And that is what they did. And along the way, they did teach me the value of writing a personal statement. And they gave me a general outline that was some of the building blocks I use in my course. But here's the differentiator for my course and for what they did is that I wrote the best personal statements they've ever seen that they use as examples for other people. They have then been using it for their consultants to use to help other people. Hence why I built a course and I don't feel bad about it, because I was teaching them a process that I taught myself because I did a lot of research. Going into the second C&P exam, I did my due diligence and my homework, and I strategized and I understood the process, and I dove into all of the things I'd gone to the doctor for since joining the military all the way till that day. And I had a list of about like 7 or 8 items that were currently diagnosed items that I didn't know I could claim because they were from service, linked in a variety of different ways. So we're looking a little bit better. And that was at the 2-year marker when I finally went to my second C&P exam. And this one went a lot better. I went through one that was for physical stuff. I had claimed a little bit more items, nothing crazy or major, but a couple issues. And then I went to a mental health C&P exam. And I'm going to make a whole video about the mental health C&P exam. I'm going to link it after this one, hopefully, or at least sometime in the next week, because I think it's really critical to know the difference on how these ones go. But those 2 exams went much better, and my claim rose a little bit the first time, and it rose a lot more the second time, and I was sitting at about 90% at this point. So things went a lot better. And I was projecting and understanding that I was probably around 90%. If you watch the video that I posted a couple days ago, I did a claims calculator like right before the exams to be like, well, you know what? Let me just try to figure out what I might be at. And the mental health exam was one of those ones that I wasn't sure about, but one thing the claims company did that helped me was they just walked me through like verbally speaking out loud and talking through some of this, which I've done in therapy. So I understood the value of doing that. So those were my 3 claims appointments, except I actually had a 4th one that I had to go to because I actually made an appeal. So I was rated at 90%, and I actually thought that they overlooked a couple items. So I submitted an appeal, and then I also initiated another claim for sinus issues because I did not do it the first time. I did not know what the PACT Act was. I started the claims process before the PACT Act was created, so I wanted to add that later. So they called me about the appeal, and what had happened is I submitted a higher level review because I said, I know I have all the evidence I can provide. However, I started a new claim for sinusitis, which was very specific because I was like, you know what, that's bothered me a lot. I mean, I have trouble breathing currently right now, and I take a prescription for it, but I didn't put it into this one because that claim was like, a year before. So I went back and I wanted to do that. So words of the wise, probably don't meddle with your claims processes this way. Don't have one that's ongoing and then start a new one. I kind of made that mistake, and I did that because I wanted to make sure I got that in at some point. So my claim did not raise any amount with the higher level review. Well, it did raise, but it did not kick me over to 100 because, as everybody knows on here, 90% and 100 can look very, very different. So I got closer to the 100 mark, but I was still sitting at 90%. But I was going back to another appointment, which was, I'm calling it my 3rd C&P exam because I'm taking out the mental health one, but I went back to another exam, this time for sinusitis under the PACT Act, which I knew should be a little bit more straightforward. So some lessons learned from the second claims appointment is that when you have the right stuff in order, learn the appeals process part, learn the higher level review. I decided that I knew I had enough stuff to help me to raise one of my claims. But, nothing is certain, right? And however they want to view it, they can. Somebody just briefly gave me a phone call and asked me about it, and that was it, right? So they called me and said, well, we're looking over your records. Why do you think this is higher? Like, that's literally what they said. And I made a statement on there, and I said, I made this statement exactly word for word to the doctor. I don't know if they wrote it down. I also have that statement from my doctor in an evidence packet, which is in there. And I remembered where it was at in the evidence packet. I said, it's in this exact folder. So I gave him the information to relook at everything. The higher level review process takes everything that you've already submitted, all your evidence, all of your personal statements, and it packages that and they relook at it versus supplemental claims or supplemental appealing, where you're adding more information into there. You're adding more evidence where you get the opportunity to do that. So I said, I'm pretty confident. And also, I thought that was fair. I'm not going to go back and try to find more stuff that I didn't have. I had all the evidence I needed. I'd been to doctors before. So then when I was going into my 3rd exam, I pretty much knew everything about this process. This was in the interim of me figuring out that I really wanted to build a course, was because I was like, wow, I've learned so much. And this was just coming up on the 3.5-year mark when I was going to that last C&P exam, which wasn't that long ago. This was only last year. And I was now doing things slightly differently with the PACT Act. So I knew, okay, we've gone to the doctor. gone to the doctor about this before. So I have that evidence, boom, have that ready, have my personal statement, have that stuff linked together. And now I just don't need to prove this was in service because of the time and place I was deployed. And I did also have a toxic exposure memo attached with this as a piece of evidence. So I thought I'm sitting pretty. And that exam was very different. So I go into this exam and I sit down and the doctor looks over and says, "Oh, you're claiming stuff for sinusitis. You've gone to the doctor for it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've gone to the doctor. I've been on like antibiotics because I found like a sinus infection, which makes me like super dizzy and out of it. And I get that pretty much every year." I said, if not more than once, which is very true because I've had to go on to antibiotics several times for bad sinus issues. She looked at everything, looked at the PACT Act claim stuff, looked at my personal statement. We just chatted for 5 minutes and then I left. And I couldn't even necessarily tell if this was in good standings or not because I didn't really need to tell much of a story. She didn't really allow that to happen, but it wasn't in a bad way like the first person. It was just like, okay, this looks good. And then I left and that was it. It was so damn quick. I thought the first one was quick. The second one was like an hour long. This doctor actually looked at everything for me physically. Obviously, for the mental health side, it was a much longer process as well, close to 2 hours. And this one was like 5 minutes and pretty positive. And what they were looking at was my evidence packet. Whereas the first person said, "You don't have anything, goodbye." This person said, "Oh, I see what you're talking about. It's right here." And I could just see her physically writing out the DBQ checklist. And I couldn't read it. Like I wasn't trying to look over their shoulders. I could just see her noting things down. And then I was out of there in 5 minutes. And that last part raised my claim up to 100%. And I think it's valuable to understand how all this process works together because you can't guarantee any parts of these. I got a rating with zero evidence at all in my story, a very low rating at 10% under a lot of misguidance. I got the majority of my rating from doing my homework, teaching myself the right way, having a better VSO as a starting point, having a company help me in the middle, and then I really wrapped it up at the end. And then the last exam was when I felt like I was an expert. I took full control from start to finish for myself. I filed the claim. I found the evidence. I wrote the personal statement. I linked it all together. I made it a bulletproof claim, even though it was under the PACT Act. Maybe some of this was more than I needed to do, but I knew the process I had learned from these few years of experiences together. And so I've talked about this on here, but I have a course to teach people how to do this. And the value here was that teaching myself gave me the depth and breadth of understanding, like the full range of understanding, because I figured out what I didn't know, but it's really hard to do that when you don't have a starting point, right? I didn't have a good starting point. So I struggled with even caring or understanding or even knowing what to ask or who to ask for the first whole year and a half. I didn't know any part of this. I just thought, well, this is how it works. Like you just get denied. Like I don't have much wrong with me then, which wasn't true because I was struggling with GERD, with anxiety, with migraines, with back pain, with leg pain, and I didn't really understand that I should be taking care of myself because I didn't have anybody to show me this or the structure. And the VA doesn't do a good job at that, right? So companies like mine, companies that do consulting or lawyers that do consulting, I understand how they get here. But what I want to explain to people that have gotten this far in the video is that the course that I have teaches you things so that you understand when to make those moves. It's not going to guarantee you 100% P&T. I got myself 100% P&T by learning, and then I developed this and I said, I need to go back in time and really write down in order everything I did, the right ways to do it, and what actually worked for me. And I was really confident when I was writing these statements with that company, and they said, these are the best statements we've ever seen. We're going to use these as examples. Are you okay with that? And I said, absolutely, help out more veterans. So I thought to myself, I'll make this course, I'll make this channel of content so that people can learn from it just like I wish I had at the time. So I'm glad you stuck around for the whole video. If you want to check out my course, it's 20% off for everybody on YouTube for life. It is a one-time payment and a lifetime course guarantee that I will make sure I keep updated every year when there's new news with the VA that comes out. And if you want to keep watching, check out this video up here.